The number five story of the day is that Donald Trump, yet again, he's such a winner, this guy, is losing in court. This time, a judge has told the Doge department, I guess the Doge team, that they're no longer allowed to look through the Social Security Administration's data, which means your and mine, or any American Social Security data, because they don't know what they're looking for. They basically, the judge said, or she said, that they'd launched a search for the proverbial needle in the haystack without any concrete knowledge that the needle is actually in the haystack, which is true. This is what they say they've been doing. They think there's fraud, but there isn't fraud.
Didn't
But
we
they're
know
going to look for
this?
fraud by
Dude.
taking all your data, searching through all your data, and then sharing it with the Russians so they can look through it as well. And then they'll determine if there's fraud at the end.
Well, I mean, are you shocked? Like,
No.
it's court ruling after court ruling after court ruling saying
It's
you
funny you
can't
should
do
mention
that.
that.
You can't do that. You can't do that. We can get to Venezuela in a second. That another big ruling that came out today. But I just wanted to kind of put this on the table for everybody because we're talking about a process that only Elon Musk, Big Dick McGee, and Long Balls, a couple of 19-year-olds, are aware of, right?
Yeah.
And there's never a receipt for anything they do. They lie about all the savings they say they're incurring on behalf of the American people. They continually get outed as liars, as this performative group of digital assassins. But let me just point this out, and I think it's worth saying, and I think everybody that's sitting there right now that's kind of on the fence watching this, probably not a lot of fence watchers watching this, but if you're on the fence and you're like, maybe he is, auditing the government, looking for savings and trying to end waste. Maybe he is. He's never done it. That's not why he's doing this. And if anybody out there is like, well, yeah, that's good for us. You got gills. I mean, you got fooled. You drank the Kool-Aid. The entire purpose of Doge, his entire purpose, is to find as much money for himself and as much information about American systems and payment systems and Social Security and processing as you can possibly find, so that he has access to some of the most sensitive data in America so that he can sell it, so he can give it to his friends. That's what he's doing. He's not, and he's trying to figure out a way to carve as much money as he can off of different programs so he can send himself to Mars. That's legitimately the only reason he's doing this. And what they're also doing is they're using this in the whole process and weaponizing this whole process so that they think that, or they can convince the American people that they're actually doing something for the American people, which is the exact opposite, dude.
They're not doing anything for the American people. They might be selling off America's needed services. I mean, that'd be privatizing or trying to privatize Social Security, but that's really what the attempt is here. There's nothing else. Donald Trump has lost so much in court lately. It's almost amazing that he thinks of himself as a winner. Firstly, he lost the case about the dismissal of the 10,000s of federal employees who are probationary workers. They lost that. They had to rehire everybody. They lost the USAID funding thing. They had to reinstate all the funding and reinstate all the people for USAID. They lost the temporary ban on transgender individuals serving in the military. That was banned as well, or the ban was lifted. And the stopping of deportations, which has been such a big story about the Alien Enemies Act. They also lost that. So he's lost about 79% of his cases that have come up against him. So he's not a winner, and he hasn't thought about the law, and he's hiring a bunch of dimwits to do all this work for him who are achieving very little. And,
dude, and I'll tell you something. The Venezuelan one was funny today because a judge told the DOJ today that the information you gave me that I asked for is not only woefully insufficient, I'm putting you on the clock because you've lied to me in these documents. So that happened today. So Trump is not only losing, he's putting people in jeopardy that he's trying to get him to help, or he's trying to get help from, so that he can win. But all of these things, and then another announcement today, right? The DOJ, the Department of Education, he says, I'm gonna shut it down. He can't do that. He can't. All he could do is open the doors, let Elon in, let him rummage around with his stupid idiot pots and pans, and then he'll get shut down again. And then the Department of Education comes back. Most of this is is performative, if you ask me. I think he has designs to destroy America from within, and I think he wants people to think that he's doing God's work, trying to get to the bottom of all kinds of disruptive spending and waste and all that stuff. That's really all this is. But that's all he is too, right? He's a fraud. Everything he does is fraudulent. And I laugh because you see people get really angry about, and they should, the human rights, oppressive human rights violations, including Jasmine Mooney, a Canadian actress who was locked up trying to renew her visa for 12 fucking days in a detention
Yeah.
center with
You're
a whole
jumping
bunch
ahead
of.
to our number one story, but that's
Okay,
okay. I'm going to let you
well,
do it. I'm going to let you do
no.
it.
Well, I'll save that, and
Yeah.
the nice little thing. Everybody can kind of come back at the end, and they go,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really waiting
It's a
for that
tease.
story." But it is the losing and the damage he's doing while he's losing to institutions, human beings, is truly remarkable. And this is what I said earlier. I mean, all because he wants people to think that he's a tough guy, and he ain't.
Or some sort of god, I guess. I don't know if he thinks even wants to be a tough guy. Someone has just said on the chat here, which is really funny. Would it be so hard to put Elon on one of his exploding rockets to Mars? Good question. Um,
Do you know how people like, you bake a cake and you're the first one to try the cake, right? Because you're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, then I know it's safe, right? He has
yeah.
not gone on any of his rockets. I just wanted to point that out.
He can't even drive a car. Never mind, never mind to fly a rocket. In his consuming and business cut staffs about the most amateurish thing he's ever experienced. There's someone else in here, and let's move on to the number four story. But you can keep adding your comments here as we go along. Just number four is actually also about Elon Musk because you just mentioned it. The guy is a fraud, and by all accounts, he's maybe even cooked the books for Tesla. There is $1.4 billion missing of the cash accounts of Tesla. No one's really
Yeah,
sure where they are. Maybe they'll find it in crypto. Maybe who knows? But according to the Financial Times, the books are cooked. According to the FT, analysis is a symptom of accounting weakness, a big problem at Tesla. Apparently, Tesla spent $6.3 billion on purchases of property and equipment, excluding finance leases, net of sales, in the third and fourth quarter of 2024 combined. But their gross value of properties and plant and equipment on the balance sheet only increased by $4.9 billion. So what happens into the $6.3 billion? How did it become 4.9? Nobody really knows. We have $1.4 billion gap in the Tesla accounting, which was interesting. I mean, I didn't know that he could get away with such massive errors in his books. Clearly, he's not very good with numbers. How is he in charge of Doge? I don't understand it. But on top of that today, Tesla is recalling all of its Cybertrucks, all of them. There's about 49,000 of them. And
yeah,
there's some amazing video of people ripping off the sides of the paneling of the Cybertruck with their fingers.
yeah.
It's so easy to pull these things off.
They're
And
glued
so
on.
there's,
Yeah,
it's a glue because that's what you want in a Cybertruck that's bulletproof.
that's right.
I guess some people are suggesting maybe that's why these things are burning and he's in his Tesla dealerships is because he doesn't have any need for them anymore. They're going to have to be recalled anyhow, and he's not going to sell them. It's such a terrible that maybe these things are like for that reason. But boy, it's not a good look for Tesla.
No, I mean, nothing is a good look for Tesla. I think we talked about
yeah,
it with Olga on the show, remember, a couple of weeks ago, and I'm
yeah,
like, they're basically a MAGA hat on wheels now. And I saw a tweet today, and I thought it was really interesting. It's like Elon Musk started a civil war against America, and he doesn't like the way it's going, right? And I thought that was really prescient. And I did a little research today. Actually, I asked Grok to do it for me. Really good. I think he's done a really good job with
Rock's
Grok.
really good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Actually, I gotta say, the one thing Elon Musk has done that's good is Grok.
Grok, yeah, it's pretty good.
Good job.
Tesla today, this is as of today, has lost their market cap peaked at 1.5 trillion December 17th, 2024, 1.5 trillion. As of today, they have lost over 820 billion of that 1.5 trillion market cap for a bunch of
Wow.
reasons. Yeah, dude, that's enormous. Like that's the kind of thing where you're looking around at insolvency, and you're starting to hear his biggest investors come up to him and say, "Hey, we need you in the building, and we need you to stop with all this fucking performative Doge shit because we're losing our shirts. Like a lot of them
Yeah,
are
a
losing their
lot.
shirts
Yes.
because it's not just the market cap, it's not just the civil war against the American people and the American people lighting his dealerships on fire and drawing Roman artwork, if you will, with dicks and balls on cars and taking wheels off of these things, and literally people just giving them away, like Mark Kelly, the senator, who's like, I'm just going to give this away. Sheryl Crow made a big deal out of it. She gave
Yeah.
away her Tesla, got a little bit of money for it, and gave the money to a homeless shelter. She's like, fuck, who cares? It is, the world is turned on him. The world
Boomer.
hasn't just,
Shush.
yeah, Boomer,
Sorry.
relax. No, it's okay. I like Boomer.
He's very cute, but he's annoying me right now.
But they've lost 800 billion in 3 months. And so
Wow.
the other part of that, which is really interesting, you talk about the books and losing somehow 1.4 billion. There's word on the street is that 1.4 billion was never really there to begin with. Now, there was something that happened in Canada recently where 4 Tesla dealerships rammed through $43 million in EV tax credit incentive grants. 4 dealerships, which meant they would have had to have sold a car every 2 minutes, a
Wow. Which they're
Tesla,
not doing.
which
They're not doing that.
not only did they not do it,
Yeah.
and 4,000 of these vehicles came from one dealership, they said. So somehow, and like there's, it's obviously never happened. Somehow, what he has done is he has, and this is the thinking. And by the way, Tesla in Canada under a very serious investigation for fraud at this moment, for defrauding the government out of almost $50 million, the government of Canada. So that's why he doesn't like Canada. That's why you're seeing all this heat from Donald Trump and the 51st state bullshit too. But the thinking is that he has been inflating these numbers for a very long time, borrowing against those numbers because his growth was 20 to 50%. Now, because the world hates him, he's actually in a negative growth pattern. So they delivered 1.81 million vehicles last year. They're on pace to do about 1.4 this year. They have never not had 20 to 50% growth. And so now the thinking is not only was all of his sales targets and his money, not only was it fraudulent, but the whole process of him telling his investors that he had sold these many cars was also fraudulent. So being able to shove fake sales through Canada to the tune of $43 million is great for his bottom line. And it came like 2 days before the deadline for these EVs, which are now gone, right? So
Right.
like
So
he sees the writing on the wall, and his actions are indicative of someone who absolutely lied about the strength and the health of his company, sales of his company, and that money that you just talked about wasn't even there.
let me not shock anybody, but actually say in my research on Elon Musk, there's a lot more fraud than we realize. It goes all the way back to his schooling. He's lied about having all these degrees. He never went to Stanford. He's only got one degree out of a Penn, and he didn't get the other one. But he's created all this legacy around him that
Yeah.
he's supposedly some sort of rocket scientist when he is not a rocket scientist. He's
How about him saying he invented Tesla? Never invented Tesla.
never
How about
invented Tesla.
invented SpaceX? Never invented SpaceX. He started Twitter. That's a new one that he's going with.
Well,
I
I
started
mean,
it. I mean, he's a cuckoo. Like
and
you've heard this, right?
the wildest thing I've ever heard, the wildest story I've ever heard, and you can check this, I verified it, that, do you know who the original Nicholas Tesla was a very well-known scientist and inventor of things. Guess who landed up seeing the entire inventory of everything that Tesla had invented at the time of his death? You'll never guess. Donald Trump's uncle. John Trump, I think it was John Trump, I can't be, but it's his uncle nevertheless, who works at MIT, who was the guy who was called in to look at all the stuff that Tesla had invented and to verify it, whether it was safe to keep or whether it was going to be an issue for national security. Landed up declaring it wasn't an issue for national security. But isn't it interesting that Tesla would have, Trump's family would have had a look at Tesla's inventions, which, maybe just coincidence, as these things might be, but I think I've learned the hard way that coincidences don't just happen in the world.
Yeah.
But back to reality and out of that conspiracy theory, let me just say that he is a fraud in every way. Everything he's done in his business life has been a bit of a fraud. He hasn't invented all these companies. He hasn't invented very much except what I think is a fire. a launcher, a fire gun of some sort. That's the
Yeah,
only
it's
thing he's ever
flame
invented. A
flamethrower. Yeah,
flamethrower.
yeah,
And that's the only thing that he's really can claim to, except for apparently bamboozling the entire population of America by convincing them that he's going to be useful to them as a deputy president or a co-president or whatever he is.
yeah.
Uh, we're going to find out, and certainly Donald Trump is going to find out that he has invested in this guy who's a total fraud. And I don't know how far and how quickly Donald Trump can run away from Elon Musk, but he's about to need to do that. I think the whole empire is crumbling. And once Tesla collapses, there's a house of cards that falls with it, because Tesla is what funds Twitter. By the end of this year, Twitter could be owned by the banks again.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
there's a big conversation going on right now about that, because he can't make those minimum payments on the debt that he incurred to purchase Twitter, and he leveraged Tesla stock and Tesla money to be able to buy Twitter. And so now the banks are coming calling, right? And as are some individual investors, with the exception of Saudi Arabia and Russian investors, strangely enough.
yeah.
So you think about what minus 800 billion does to your bottom line in 3 months.
I think
That is
about that all the time, actually, and I just think I'll still have enough money to live a lavish lifestyle like I do right now, so it's not a problem. He can have the 800 billion. You keep it.
But it was almost like it's like Trump trying to outrun those insurrection charges by becoming the president. Elon really had to go all in with Trump, because he knows he's a fraud. Every fraud knows they're a fraud. He
Yeah.
knows he's over leveraged. He knows who he's in business with, and so Doge was a perfect opportunity for him to hide himself just a little bit longer, maybe outrun some of this fraud that we're now experiencing. And I watched Bill Burr the other day on was it with Kimmel? Or no, it might have been Fallon. It was just a clip that I watched, and I thought, I thought of Elon immediately, because he was just carving Elon, and he's like, billionaires, right? Like, how many do you need? Do you need all the billions? Like, at what point are you going to be a happy person instead of looking like you just shopped at hot topic? Like,
Yeah.
and you want to destroy people's lives because you have nothing else to do, because you have all the fucking money. Well, I think you're going to see, and I think you're seeing it now, one of the biggest collapses of reputation, of business, personal wealth. To your point, I think in the next 6 months to a year, you're going to see Elon Musk running away from all of this. And at some point, someone's going to take it from him, because everything that he does is fraudulent. What he's doing now is fraudulent, and it's literally killing Americans, and Americans are fighting back. And for that, I love those Americans. Like, I know I probably shouldn't be saying this on a Substack stream, where you got a couple hundred people watching, but I've got no problem watching videos of Tesla dealerships going up in flames, like zero.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't
I'm
be saying that,
really
'cause
enjoying
they're
it.
calling it a terrorist movement now. But
Of course
some
they
people
are.
are even suggesting here on the chat that people should be dumping their Teslas into the Boston Harbor, which is kind of funny. Maybe we need to go back to have a little tea party or a Tesla party in Boston. I think you're totally right. This is a scam artist, and I think we're going to find out that he's a scam artist in the biggest way. And it's going to be egg all over Donald Trump's face when this happens. And he's not going to be able to run quickly enough, because he is not going to be able to get away from this guy's reputation.
Well,
I
he's
will say as
also a bit of a
well,
scam artist as well, right?
he's
Like
a little bit of
Donald.
a
So
scam artist. There is no idea, by the way. They've arrested 3 guys or 3 people related to these Tesla fires that are happening. But miraculously, this time there is no video from the Teslas themselves to show what happened. In the last time a Tesla caught fire, way back on January the 1st, Elon Musk was all over it, saying, "Hey, I've got all the video, I've got the telemetry, whatever it is. I can tell you exactly what happened in that accident or in that explosion." This was outside the Trump Hotel in Vegas. But this time, no videos from Teslas. There's no videos, and everyone's asking, why are there no videos from Tesla? Because the biggest, most famous thing about these Teslas is that they have videos on board. They constantly record everything going on around them. Why are we not seeing any actual evidence of what happened? Why is it only
yeah,
distant cameras and from nearby stores that they're using, which is kind of bizarre. All right.
and let me just kind of wrap a
Yeah.
bow on that one too. Canada got in on the act yesterday at a Tesla dealership in Hamilton. 80 Teslas were vandalized to the point where they cannot be driven anymore. And I know I shouldn't be saying this, but oh well.
Well, but nobody wants to buy these things. They're kind of like they're worth nothing anyhow. And a lot of people are saying, can you even insure them anymore? A lot of these people are not willing to get. A lot of these insurance
Yeah.
companies are saying we don't want to insure that. That's not, it's not. There's no resale value at all. Let's number three. So unsurprisingly, again, I mean, can even be like the shortest story in the world. There is no actual ceasefire agreement between Donald Trump and Putin and Zelensky. There never was. The whole thing is collapsing in a pile of heap. They're all pretending that there's something going on, but there ain't anything going on, and the war continues. People are dying. Bombs are being thrown and exploding right now in various cities in Ukraine. Russia is being relentless. Um, how long do we have to go through the charade for? I don't know, but there is no ceasefire, and it doesn't look like we're going to get one anytime soon. But peace talks supposedly begin. I guess on the 11th. It's a few weeks away, but we'll see what happens around that. I don't know if I know you're passionate about the topic of Ukraine, but this
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I really am, and and it's funny because when Donald Trump started to engage with Putin, everybody was like, he's not going to stick to any ceasefire. He's just going to lie and go and do whatever the fuck he wants anyway. And case in point, he lied and did whatever the fuck he wanted anyway, basically putting Trump's balls in his purse along the way. And Ukraine getting pounded with more ICBMs and drones. Residential neighborhoods are just going after like suburban parts of bigger cities now in Ukraine. But Ukraine fired back yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, but the Engels Air Force Base, which houses basically all of Russia's really important weaponry, munitions, bombers, was absolutely devastated by Ukraine yesterday. You could see the fire burning from like 150 miles away. The key here is, I think, about 2,000 kilometers from the border. So, Ukraine is no shrinking violet. And when we're watching this ceasefire take place, which Ukraine agreed to, which Russia said they agreed to, and then immediately attacked them, I believe it was 2 hours after Russia said, "Yeah, we've agreed to the ceasefire for now, and we'll have some peace talks." No, 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 no. They immediately went after critical infrastructure, and then they added on a couple of hospitals, a couple of community centers, and a bunch of neighborhoods. And so, Ukraine's smart. Ukraine and Zelensky are incredibly smart, astute. They've been dealing with these barbarian dickheads for hundreds of years. They don't trust Russia in Ukraine. If you speak to a Ukrainian, they will tell you that not only do they not trust Russia, they don't trust Russians. They don't trust a word that comes out of their mouth. And to an individual in Ukraine, none of them want any ceasefire. None of them. They want to finish the job. They want to finish Vladimir Putin. They want to finish Russia, and they want to finish Russia in Russia. So, to your point, I mean, Putin's never going to stick to a ceasefire agreement. He has already lost. I think the number that I read out of the UK was something like 920,000 casualties in 3 years, roughly 270,000 dead. Those are Russians
Unbelievable.
in 3 fucking years. And so,
Unbelievable.
Ukraine knows they can win this, and watching the rest of the EU, which I don't know if you saw this, the EU Defense Act, 800 billion. Canada's involved with it. Australia's involved with it, and pivoting back to Canada a little bit because we've got some needs, obviously, with Trump wanting to take over this country as well. They're going to go all in Ukraine, and they're going to go all in for those EU countries. And Canada's going to get busy helping them build that military defense pipeline. They're going to be taking over different aspects of production and manufacturing for fighter jets here in Canada. We're going to be helping the EU. They're going to be helping us because we have to diversify that trade. So, as most things go when it comes to doing anything with Russia, and you can add Trump to the mix now in the United States of America, you can't trust them. And we know you can't
I want to
trust them.
underline something you've just said because I think it's really important that Americans understand what's going on. Because of Trump's ridiculous tariffs, because of his restrictions on these incredibly important rare minerals that Canada has that America really needs, really wants, and really needs, because he's now blocking off that border, Canada is doing what it needs to do and going to find other markets in other
Mm-hmm.
parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's aluminium and that steel and all those precious rare minerals. They are going to be finding new customers in Europe. They're going to be finding new customers elsewhere in the world. And they are not coming back to the United States.
No, sir.
Ever.
No.
Ever.
No.
I don't think they understand the economic damage that's being done to America right now by these insane tariffs on America's closest ally and best friend and most secure neighbor you could possibly imagine. They are busy shooting themselves in the foot and in every other part of their body. They are destroying the American economy by losing this important pipeline of rare earth minerals, of steel, of aluminium, of lumber that is so important to Canada, to America. This is what builds America. America needs all this stuff. And it's going. Carney was at a press conference today, I think, saying, you know what, guys, I have been in Europe and I have been in Europe to build new partnerships, and they're going to be building their weapons here in Canada, and I'm also going to be shipping them everything they need through the north, through the Arctic, through these new deep water ports that they're now going to be able to use in the Arctic. And this supply chain that America has loved and that Canada has loved, this has been a great partnership for so long. And what this man, Donald Trump, is doing to America is unconscionable. And it's not only just about a war or whatever, just the tariffs themselves are going to hurt America forever, forever.
Yep.
Your children, your grandchildren, their grandchildren are going to be paying for this because they're never going to be able to get their hands on those resources again.
So I learned something this week. Well said. I really appreciate you getting into this because Canada is playing a major role in isolating the United States now because we have to, right? And the United States is effectively isolated. But I did a little research into this. I believe America, the United States, was responsible for selling 75% of the world's weaponry to international partners, right? Lockheed Martin, we're aware of Lockheed Martin. There's a whole bunch of different companies, publicly traded defense companies, that have not only lost contracts. Case in point, Canada's not going to follow through with purchasing 88 F-35s because the United States can brick those jets. And so we're choosing to do business with other countries, but we're also choosing to take ownership with those countries in the process of isolating the United States and Donald Trump forever. To your point, we're going to do business with those companies, so it's good for our economy and it's good for our national security because Donald Trump can't be trusted. Donald Trump has destroyed not just the relationship with Canada, but watching all the countries that Donald Trump has picked on and America is trying to pick on. Watching them all band together to not just shore up, security agreements and defense contracts, but to shore up economic contracts that make the defense of these countries possible. And this isn't something that's going to come back, to your point. Once we stick 40 billion, 50 billion into driving infrastructure so that we can build our own weaponry with other countries that are friendly to Canada, where we have CETA agreements, like the European Free Trade Agreement, Canada, CETA is the Canada-Europe trade agreement. Once we take down those barriers, we're going to do, before Donald Trump gets his hands on this country, we're going to do exactly what he wanted to do, but it'll be us doing it. It'll be us managing shipping routes. It'll be us deciding that we're going to conduct the business in the north. We're going to open up the Arctic to those trade routes. But while we're doing that, and that's why Mark Carney stopped in Nunavut on his way back from securing some really historic deals for Canada with France and the UK, because he knows how important this is. He knows what the game plan is from the United States. And just a little quick aside, Mark Carney yesterday said something that I thought was fascinating when it comes to Donald Trump. They asked if he was going to speak with him, and he said, you know what? I am not going to talk to him until he stops with this 51st state bullshit and he shows a sovereign country a little fucking respect. So we've isolated him verbally. We're not talking to anybody with the United States of America. I'm sure there are back channel conversations going on. They're continuing with the rhetoric while we just get busy making sure that they can never do business with us in this capacity, never threaten us in this capacity. And not just us, but 38 other countries as well. Interesting side note to that, Donald Trump isn't even allowed in Canada. I don't know if you read this the other day. Yeah. AP came out with a thing. It said, Don's going to have a hard time getting into 38 countries. And what people don't understand is we fucking mean it. If he tries to come up here for the G7, he will get turned around because he's not only a convicted 34-time felon, he's an adjudicated rapist. So,
do you think he's going to no. Really?
Well, here's the thing. Like, Donald Trump hasn't left Florida or D.C.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Get arrested in all these places. But, I mean, look, this is what America gets for electing this guy, if they really elected him. But if you are, if people think this is just going to be one of those things we can elect our way out of, no, we can't elect our way out of Donald Trump. It's either you got to protest your way out of it, or I don't know, things have fundamentally got to change to get your way out of Donald Trump. Otherwise, Donald Trump's here, and this system is here because they're committing so many crimes. Earlier on, I mentioned that there was a bunch of court cases, over a dozen. This isn't just in the last few weeks. The Trump over a dozen judges, where is it, have determined that Trump and his administration have likely broken the law, averaging one such finding approximately every 4 days. They're continuously outlaws and breaking the law and committing crimes. In other words, if they're ever going to get out of power, they are going to be prosecuted, and they know that. They know they're a bunch of criminals. So the only way to get them out of power is to force them out of power. And if you're going to wait for 4 years for that to happen or longer, by that time you can kiss the economy goodbye, because Canada and the rest of America's allies are not going to be there at all. They're just going to be too busy making money elsewhere in the world and doing their resources elsewhere in the world. It's a terrible situation America finds itself in.
Yeah, well, a terrible situation America finds itself in, but America voted for that situation,
Yeah.
right? And this is you get what you pay for, as they say. Elections have consequences, America. But it also has been really encouraging to watch the revolution start, whether it's the Tesla dealerships, whether it's the mass protests, whether it's judges pushing back, because the Democratic Party isn't doing anything about it. And you're seeing the institutions and the Constitution get challenged for the first time ever in any way, shape, or form that scares people. And so, whether you want to call it a civil war, whether you want to call it an uprising, whether you want to call it a revolution, I had this conversation with someone last week. They asked the likelihood of Trump invading Canada. I go, I got the sneaking suspicion that he's going to have to survive a civil war in his own country first, the way that this country is responding to having their freedoms taken away. Add in the Insurrection Act, add in the Illegal Alien Act, you add in the censorship regime. They're literally doing everything they can to become North Korea, to become Russia, to become China. And, that country over hundreds of years has been conditioned to hate communism, to hate authoritarianism, that freedom is the most important thing. And you're truly seeing people who have voted for him turn around and go, oh my God, I didn't think it would be this bad. I voted for an idea. But that idea is not just soured. His approval rating is in the toilet. Elon Musk's approval rating is half of Donald Trump's approval rating. Donald Trump's approval rating was something like 42% yesterday. So, that hatred, and Americans, they get their own, right? So, I have a to your point, completely agree. This is not going to happen with voting. I believe Americans are just starting now to wake up to the idea that they need to physically have him removed, and they need to turn up the heat so much. They need to zero Tesla stock to do it. And watch, man, baby, watch. It's happening. And I couldn't be more proud of the way Americans are responding. Obviously, the violence isn't cool, but like I said, I mean, if I saw a Tesla dealership on fire, I'd go grab some s'mores.
I can endorse that. The number two story of the day is also about Carney. It's interesting. There's two stories about Carney here. The new Canadian Prime Minister, he was endorsed today by Donald Trump, or the other day by Donald Trump, who said, "Hey, I support Carney and not Poilievre," even though everyone up to now has thought he supported Poilievre, and all the evidence suggests he does support Poilievre. And this is just really how bad Trump's reputation really has gotten. That, in fact, endorsing the guy you don't want to win is what works for you these days, because everyone hates you so much.
Yeah.
It's reverse psychology, and it's a failure. And thank you, Twyla, for figuring that out. You also got to share something about the pedo claims around Mark Carney. That out come the conservative Epstein conspiracy theorists out there, and it's all bullshit. But you go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy to watch, and to touch on Donald Trump's endorsement of Mark Carney. Donald Trump never met a movement he didn't want to attach himself to for ego and popularity reasons.
Yeah.
Mark Carney is an assassin. Mark Carney, we've talked about him. He's the new Prime Minister of Canada, and a couple of quick updates. Is an economic genius, maybe the smartest mind when it comes to the economy, business, money, tariffs, trade in the world. You know, he wasn't just the governor of the Bank of Canada as a liberal working, and was handpicked by Stephen Harper, who was a hardcore conservative in
Mhm.
2008 to 2014. He also really did incredible work in England, warned against Brexit, and then kind of pieced out when they did it. He's like, guys, you got to tube the economy. I can't work here anymore.
Yeah.
He also saved Ireland. But Mark Carney is getting very busy doing all the things that he should be doing to steal every single centrist who is leaning towards the right. And a couple of the things that he did, to your point, which I thought were really interesting, and specifically recently, is he canceled the carbon tax. Right, it was a big, stupid tax, and people that didn't understand it were even dumber, and they railed against it, which they shouldn't have. And then he did something else today, where he canceled the GST on new home purchases by any first-time homeowner up to $1
That's
million.
interesting. I see that.
Yeah. And then, he decided that he was going to call an election, and he's going to do it on Sunday. He's going to dissolve government, because that's the other thing that conservatives are really pissed about, that he doesn't have an elected seat. He was installed, they say. Well, he won the leadership bid in a democratic process, and that's why he's the next Prime Minister of Canada. And he's legitimately pulled all the bullets out of their Russian MAGA funded pea shooters, the conservative Russian MAGA funded guns, to the point now where the only thing that's left is to accuse him of being a pedophile.
Mm.
And we were warned about this. We talked about it last week. We were warned by CSIS, former director of CSIS, Ward Alcock, saying that there's going to be a major, major disinformation campaign around Mark Carney, and it is going to be very public. Well, today, great report from Luke LeBrun, who's a reporter at Press Progress, put out a great story. We did a tweet thread about it. You can see it at It's Dean Blundell on Twitter. Today, it started. You started to see those pictures of Mark Carney standing next to Ghislaine
Oh
Maxwell.
yeah,
Ghislaine
that's the
Maxwell.
last week it started. It was there.
Yeah,
I've been pointing it out for the last few the days. Yeah, it's
yeah.
been around.
But Jeff Ballingall, who owns Canada Proud, who sued me actually for slander of all things,
Yeah.
said he was going to go heavy and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to discredit Mark Carney. How he's doing it is he's paying thousands of dollars on Facebook, taking AI images and one legitimate picture of Mark Carney standing next to Ghislaine Maxwell at a function where a bunch of hoity-toity people were at 2 years before we knew anything about the Epstein files, like 2 entire years. He's not friends with any of those people. I don't even know if he's run into Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. No idea. But they're also taking AI images of him on the beach with Ghislaine Maxwell and Tom Hanks, of all people. And this is an organization, Canada Proud, to your point, that is the exclusive digital partner of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada. They are a third-party lobby group and agency that get paid to destroy people's reputations, political reputations, personal reputations. These are the same people that work with a company called Juno, who put out that incredibly disgusting hit piece on Mark Carney's non-binary daughter, Sasha, if
Mhm.
you remember. That happened a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And so, it's fascinating to me because Mark Carney's a serious player. He's serious about doing the business of Canada to the point where he's bringing conservatives into his cabinet. He's calling an election. He's going to make sure Canada's on solid ground. The conservatives are flailing. They've lost something in the neighborhood of 50 percentage points at this point. And if you look on Polymarket, it's stunning,
Mm.
almost 70 points in some cases, where the conservatives were going to run away with it. And now they are so panicked. They've tapped Jeff Ballingall and Canada Proud to put out question marks about, does Mark Carney know anything about the pedophile, the elite Epstein pedophile ring? Was he involved with these people? And to Jeff Ballingall's credit, he asks a question so he doesn't get sued. But I have it on very good authority that there is going to be a legal response due
Mm.
to some of the things that are being suggested about Mark Carney being a pedophile and hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. And the only reason these dickheads are doing it is because they got nothing else.
I mean,
Nothing
this is
else.
there should be a legal suit against him, and you can't say those things in Canada as easily as you can in the United States. And by the way, let me just explain to everyone. I've done the research on this. I broke the story. The reason that Epstein and Maxwell were ever seen with any politicians is because likely they were trying to extort them and blackmail them. So they would need relationships with them to get to know them in order to even get them into bed with young girls so they could take the photos and then sell them or threaten to sell them. This is the whole shtick that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were involved in, was about blackmailing mostly liberal politicians. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of Democrats with Ghislaine Maxwell in different parties and things like that. It doesn't mean a thing. It just means that they were trying to extort them, trying to blackmail them, trying to get them into bed with younger girls just so they could, you know,
And
blackmail them later.
and let's not assuage the idea that there are dozens of pictures of Elon Musk with Ghislaine Maxwell,
Yeah,
emails between Epstein and Musk, a 15-year
dinners. There
best
was a dinner. They
dinners,
had
weekends
investment dinners with
away. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 dude. Like it's like
And
and
with
it.
Trump, I mean, Trump is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Trump was more than that. He was more of an enabler than even he was in partnership with Jeffrey Epstein during those years. But that's a whole other thing. The number one story of the day is that it's really not safe, and this is really sad because I love traveling to America. I love being an American. I love being in America, but you can no longer travel safely to America as a foreigner. There have been now 4 instances of 4 different NATO countries, each in different entry ports, where travelers from these countries are being detained, where they're having their social media scrutinized to the point where if they've ever said anything negative about Donald Trump, they're denied entry. These people who are being questioned, and if they answer incorrectly about something for even the smallest thing, even though they've got all the right visas, they've got all the right authorization, they're no longer being allowed in. So there's now travel advisories from Germany and from Britain that have just been come out today. And there's, I posted a story on the narrative.org about this. This is where we're at. It's no longer really safe if you're a foreigner that's traveling to the United States. Certainly, if you've traveled to the United States and you've ever said anything on your social media where you've been critical about Donald Trump, and let's face it, who hasn't? You could face rejection by the border officials there. Doubly so if you're a journalist or a researcher or anything professional. It's a sorry state of affairs, and it really is tragic. I mean, I can't think of a bigger indictment on, although there's so many right now, on America right now, but that they're not allowing their friends and allies into the beacon of freedom around the world. They're not allowing us into their country is ridiculous. Is ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's as you mentioned earlier, a Canadian actress
Mhm.
who was in a cell for 2 weeks.
Yeah, detained in Arizona and San Diego, and only because she didn't have the proper paperwork, and someone just decided that, yeah, we got to treat you like we treat everybody else. Her name's Jasmine Mooney, actress. And to your point, and I'll get to that in just a second, Canada's readying a travel advisory for all Canadians going to the United States as well, not just because of Jasmine Mooney, but there were 2 other Canadian women who were also detained for weeks on end, who were in the United States, who had made, one lady had overstayed her welcome by 3 days, according to her visa. She got shoved into a detention center, and I'll get to Jasmine Mooney's story in just a second. But that travel advisory is coming out very, very soon. And to your point, you should be very afraid of crossing an international border if you have a social media account. You should be very afraid if you're Canadian and if you've ever said anything about Donald Trump, negative or otherwise, or if you're a reporter. And that came from something that I saw yesterday, where a French scientist who was coming to the United States
Yeah.
to do part of a research team, was detained and then turned around and deported because border officials went through her social media account, realized she had disparaged Donald Trump once a year and a half ago, and they're like, "No, you're out." I mean, that's a full-on fascist dictatorship. That's
I mean, but
nothing
they're
more.
checking people's private phones and their private conversations on the. Firstly, they have no right to do that. I mean, it's just not acceptable in a free, democratic society that they go invading someone's privacy like that. But even if they did, if they were suspicious of somebody, maybe that's you can get away with excusing that. But this is a professor going on a research visit and to attend a conference, and they're not letting her in, letting him in.
No
Um,
criminal
you know,
record, nothing
yeah,
like that. Yeah,
with the right authorization, with the right paperwork, with the right
yep.
everything, not being allowed in. There's another woman, for British artist from Wales, who was detained since February, was only recently allowed out to meet to see her family. I
Mhm.
mean, these people are getting thrown into cells, for weeks at a time, and maybe we're just,
Yeah.
more
Well,
sympathetic to the NATO countries, and it's happening to a lot of other people as well who are illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. But still, it is. horrific for Americans to be doing this. What's next? They're going to open the doors to Russians and just let the Russian oligarchs in? You
Mm-hmm.
betcha. That's
Yeah.
what they're going to do with $5 million a visa. That's what they're going to do, and they're going to be your new neighbors. So,
Yeah.
you know, it sucks. It sucks
It's
because
it's it's it sucks.
it
It
sucks.
sucks because it is something that we're not used to. We're not used to being detained for our views. We're not used to being thrown in jail,
Mhm.
or we're used to being able to cross the border and do so freely and be excited to do so. But the Jasmine Mooney story is remarkable, right? Jasmine's a Canadian actress, business girl. She was working for a wellness brand. She'd been in the United States for 6 months, needed to re up some of her paperwork. So she was told to go to a certain office to do so. She was hauled into this office, gave them the paperwork. They said, okay, listen, yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to detain you. And she said, for what? And she goes, well, the border security agent said, you're an illegal alien. And so we have to detain you. You're here illegally. You don't have the proper paperwork. She was, well, I was told I have an appointment. I came down here to
Crazy.
do that from
Crazy.
Canada here to do that. And they go, yeah, it
And
doesn't
then they
matter.
detained her.
They put her hands against the wall, told her to put her hands up against the wall, patted her down, gave her a full body cavity search, threw her into a detention center with one of those foil blankets and a hand towel, and they left her there for 3 days. 3 days. Then they came and got her, sent her to another detention center from San Diego to Arizona, a grueling trip that took an entire day on a bus full of criminals, like criminals going to jail. And she was there for 12 days. She wasn't allowed to call her friends, wasn't allowed to contact a lawyer, wasn't allowed to call her family until somewhere in the 8 to 9 to 10 day range. She called her best friend, who then informed her work. And there was a tablet on the wall where she could actually email. She was allowed to email somebody finally and say, oh my God, I've been detained, and had done absolutely nothing
Crazy.
wrong other than follow the instructions of U.S. immigration authorities to go and re-up her paperwork.
It's
So,
crazy.
so the Trump administration is actually targeting people. They're targeting people from countries that Trump doesn't like, and that's not just a rumor. There are several reports out there about Trump and the Trump administration giving orders to ICE and border security to really ramp up strip searches, detainees, really ramp up the violence around detaining people that are in that country legally if they're from countries that Donald Trump is currently at war with, Canada being number one on that list for some fucking unknown reason. So that's why the government of Canada is getting ready to put out a travel advisory to all Canadians, because there's a thought there that he is legitimately trying to target Canadians because he wants Canadians to be afraid of them. He wants Canadians to know he hates them. And he does. Like Donald Trump talks about how much he loves Canada. Donald Trump didn't. He hates this country. And the reason why he hates this country is because we're not a failed state. We're good people. And the reason why he hates this country is because this country fucking hates him. Every single
Well,
person in this country, with the exception of the stupids, cannot stand that man. His approval rating is like 92% of Canadians hate him. That's a legitimate Angus Reid statistic. So,
yeah.
and he knows that. And so Donald Trump is so petty. He's literally targeting Canadians that are traveling in the United States.
The other reason he's not loved in Canada is that he tried to build a Trump Tower, and was everyone realized it was in Vancouver, and it turned out that that was another one of his scams, and that's and so that's another reason he doesn't love Canada, because he keeps getting caught out for his crimes. But it's clear to me what you're saying is absolutely right. There's been 4 instances now. We've had the French scientist, the Canadian actress you just spoke about, 3 German citizens detained in San Diego as well, and then the British artist from Wales was detained in February for a few weeks. I mean, these are NATO countries. These are NATO countries. There, you don't have to be a genius to see the pattern. And it looks like a pattern to me. I mean, it's still early. Maybe it's just coincidence, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I think this
Did
sounds to
you
me like
did you hear the one about the Venezuelan soccer player
no.
who was tortured by the Maduro regime, asked for asylum in the United States, was given it? He was on one of those flights
Oh
that,
God.
yeah, and he was sent right to El Salvador, to that maximum security prison, because the Trump administration has a deal with Bukele and the El Salvadorian government, because they built this enormous prison
Yeah.
facility. and the Trump administration is paying them to take as many people as they can send down there. They actually have a deal. It's human trafficking. And so this gentleman, and by the way, a lot of non-criminals, people who
Yeah, I'm
Trump just
sure.
wanted out of the country, are in that prison right now. Thousands of them in
God
that
knows what's
prison right
happening
now.
there.
And it is a nightmare. Like, they're not allowed to talk to anybody. They can't go anywhere. It's hard labor all day long. They're not rehabilitating anybody. They're taking all of those prisoners and they're turning them into a workforce. So they're effectively, it's just being shipped to El Salvador for slave labor. And this poor soccer guy, whose family was taken from him, I can't remember his name. Family was taken from him, who was tortured, beat, abused, 7 ways to Sunday for years by the Maduro regime, who was given access to live in the United States, was working gainfully in the United States, is now in this prison along with thousands of others who don't deserve to be there. So I don't doubt that if he had his way, he'd be sending members of NATO countries and their citizens there as well.
I'm sure that he would. What a depressing way to end the show, but what a depressing half hour to an hour it's been, because there's been so many. I mean, you start off with Elon Musk, and then you land up with, you travel through the crazy Trump thing, and then you land up with these tourists being thrown into jail for no good reason, and in the war with Canada, it makes no sense. It's like it's lunacy, and again, I'll just to re-say it again. This doesn't enter the election of a democratic government in for you, as this kind of criminality that's ongoing, as you just mentioned, human trafficking, add that to the list. These guys are not going to want to get out of power ever, because it's their only way to survive.
Well,
And
he's
that's why
not,
we saw.
but he's to that point. He's not acting like he wants to get elected again. He's acting like
No.
he's just not going to leave. Like the
Yeah, well, he's
decisions
going
that
to
he's made.
run again in 28, but God knows what that's going to look like. It's not going to be a free and fair election. And, as we were saying the other day about the Insurrection Act today, it's confirmed that they're looking at building a military buffer zone, call it what you will, but it will have to be under the Insurrection Act, along the southern border. And this is where, I don't know, they'll militarize the whole zone over there. They'll turn it into no man's land. If an illegal immigrant crosses, they'll be treated like they were crossing onto a military base. God knows what that would look like. And that'll be a launch pad for attacks, or military attacks, all the way into Mexico, all the way down to Panama. They've also vilified Costa Rica suddenly. I mean, Costa Rica of all places. I mean, these guys are going after the whole of North America, and they mean business. There is, I should mention to everybody, a protest day, April the 5th. It's happening across the United States, in Washington, D.C., but also in your hometown. Look it up under Indivisible. It's probably the best place to go to look it up. Others, I think it's called Hands Off 2025. That's the website, Hands Off 2025. Protest is what it's going to be. This is the way. This is the only way, really, to get the message to Donald Trump and his supporters that this is not what you want to do in America. That is the show. Dean Blundell of the Dean Blundell Substack and of crier.co. So do you want to promote anything? Do you want to share anything before we leave?
No,
Any last thoughts? Okay.
no, I really
All right.
don't. Just come and join me over at Substack. Really love doing this with everybody. The
Yeah.
interaction and
Yeah.
the amount of people that are watching this. Again, you remember we started this, there were 20, 30 people. And then the next one, there's maybe about 80, 90, and then a couple hundred. The last time we did this, we're well over 300
Yeah.
beautiful people
Great.
watching this that want that information. But yeah, just support us there, because we want to continue to give you the information. We want to continue to help each and every like-minded Canadian and American understand kind of what's at stake, the stuff that you're not going to hear anywhere else, or the stuff that gets dumbed down for you, where you're like, really? Really, he's abducting Canadians? Yeah, he's totally abducting Canadians at this
I'm
point.
terrified of even going
Yeah.
near a border
Well,
post right
hey,
now.
let me ask you that. Would
Yeah.
you go into
No.
the?
I would. I was scared before actually going to the United States, because I mean my reporting has always been on the. They're annoyed by me. I know they're annoyed by me. I know Donald Trump does not like the reporting I do out there, and a lot of the conservatives in the United States don't like what I've exposed about them and Elon Musk and company. But if I think right now, if I crossed the border, I'd be just like sitting duck for them, and they would just do so. I'd be arrested. I really do. I really
Yeah,
do.
I listen to that point. It was right before Christmas. I canceled the trip to New York, and the reason why I
Yeah.
canceled the trip to New York is because I'm afraid of that country. I'm afraid of the people in it. I know what I've said about that piece of shit, and you're seeing it literally come to fruition. So if you are Canadian and you're watching this, don't go to the United States. You're going to get a travel advisory very soon. If you are American working in the tourism industry, I'm very sorry. We can't be there with you for the next 4 years. But if you are an American in the tourism industry or an American who appreciates democracy, time is now. Rise up, do what you got to do. Go to these protests. I'm not a protest guy, dude, but if I was an American, I would go to every single one of those protests and I would get as many people as I could to go with me, because you're losing your country. You're losing your friends. You're losing your allies. You're losing your business. You're losing your money. You are losing. And
Yeah.
America used to be a country full of big fat winners, baby. So let's get back there, because there's nothing Canadians want more than to live next to a country that we're proud to live next to, that we feel safe in, that we feel safe living next to and above. And we believe in you. So go get it. Get that guy out of office. Can't be that hard.
Well, let's find out. We'll find out. Rise up, everybody. All right, that's the show for tonight. Thanks for watching the Five Stack on Substack, and we'll see you again next time. Good night, everybody.